talking because nobody's watching. You can see right here. I don't know what that is. It's got to be air. It's the only thing that would change. Pressure differential, wind blowing. It's the only thing that could cause that. And these look blown out. Here they're fine. Cameras look fine. That TV, they look blown out. We'll have to look at the recording to see what they look like. That's going to annoy. Is it? That's going to annoy the shit out of me. No, it's not. It's not hydronic heat system. It's a forced air system. So if the furnace isn't blowing, there's no air.
I wonder if it's something like my feet squeaking, but it's carrying over there.
Wow,
I can't do it.
You're that's
Have you ever heard
less
somebody throw
intuitive
their
than I
voice?
would have ever thought. Yeah, it's not a real thing. So we'll jump in anyway on that note, throwing the sound from my feet. All right. For anybody that's logged in or watching now or watching later, this is actually the first live stream event that we have in our series called Teach Talks. The intent of this is to really have a weekly conversation, sometimes with guests, sometimes just Joe and I rambling, but to talk about different trends in training, different tools and resources, but everything really about construction education and the fact that so much of that is shifting online, and maybe this will be a platform that can support some of that. So what I didn't say when I first started, probably should have, my name is Michael Smith, and this is
Joe Carswell.
And if for some reason you've seen any of our stuff, you see Joe quite a bit. So you may be watching this on either our Facebook channel from Teach Construction, our Facebook channel for Trade Skills U, could be either one of our YouTube channels, one for Teach Construction, one for Trade Skills U, which is a great time to kind of share with you what the hell, why do we have Trade Skills U and Teach Construction being two different things? The brand name of Teach Construction we primarily use as anything or any one of our products or services or a streaming show like this, which are products directly delivered to teachers or instructors or trainers or whatever you want to call the person who is helping someone learn construction, or they're actually teaching construction. So that's what we do under any of our channels for Teach Construction. Under any of our channels for Trade Skills U, if you see that name, that is products that are really student facing. So this conversation is not designed for necessarily student facing. If a student watches this video, great, not a problem, but we're not here to teach construction. We're here to talk about the tools that we have, tools and resources that we have available. So what I do want to say, and Joe's going to talk about one of our topics here in just a moment, but if you are just jumping on, go ahead and put something in chat, say who you are, that you're there. This from a streaming platform, different from like a Zoom meeting. I get a little ticker that says somebody's there, but I have no idea who it is. So if you want to have a conversation with us, put something in the chat so we can see who it is, and we can send a invite for you to join the conversation. So one of the topics we want to talk about today is our skills exercises. So in our resources from Teach Construction, we provide, let's go down the list. We've got a lesson plan.
Right.
Then we have a lesson video, which you can find on Trade Skills U YouTube channel.
Related vocabulary.
Yep, vocabulary for it. We have quizzes or quiz question bank for the teacher to use in your own learning management system. What else in that suite?
Skills exercise.
Great. And then there's videos for students on how to do the skills exercise and for instructors.
Right.
Anything else in the package that I'm missing?
That kind of covers the high spots. Certain, we might have special build projects that will take all of those, combine multiple tools, multiple skills, put them all together.
Okay. So the thing about skills exercise, and when we started doing this, that was back when we were running direct training programs. And as a part of that process, you need to teach somebody the concepts and you need to teach them the skill. So we break it down now as knowledge and skill elements. But in order for that skill element, a student has to be able to be individually observed and evaluated on their competency. So you're either competent or you're not yet there, but you will be. So our skills exercises are designed for teachers to do exactly that. But Joe wants to kind of go through at least one set of ours that
Sure,
kind of
absolutely.
connect to each other.
And I think I'd start by saying that I think it's often misunderstood what our skills exercises are for. Michael started with, it's not only assessing the students, but giving everybody a place to practice where they're kind of solo working on that particular item, that whatever that training day is for. This here is an example of, as this is as basic as it gets. It's our fastener board, and pretty much it's made with very simple materials. This is a 2x6 by 8 foot cut in half with a 7/16 piece of OSB sandwiched in between it. And if you've done any framing, you would recognize this as a typical header for 2x4 residential framing. So this one assembly here goes together very quickly, a few cuts, some inexpensive materials, and this becomes something the students will revisit multiple times with multiple tools, and they'll get a lot of practice and skills exercises in this 4-foot space. Also, when you're talking about students, it's all scalability. You might only have 5 students, you might have 20 students. This works in whatever size group that you're working with. I want to go to some plans, and all of our skills exercises are plan-based. So there's a set of instructions that the students will use to work on this, from assembling it as a fastener board, that's what we call this particular item, and then working through all of their tools with it. They'll start with a speed square, and they'll be laying out different grids. This is a 20 square grid that needs to be laid out per this set of plans. And the multiple grids will then become basically an area that will be fastener practice with hammers or with a cordless drill later. And whether it's the cordless drill or the hammer, now you as the trainer have an opportunity to create.
Okay, are you going to be talking to them about the plans or the board? So I know what camera to put up.
Okay, well, let's stick with the plans. Okay. So the fasteners for each grid square can change. Now you can talk to them about different fasteners, whether that's hammers or the cordless drill, that works. Here's your hammer version of the same thing. So one side of this board is for hammers, one side is for cordless drill. Same 4-foot piece. They're going to revisit it multiple times. And at the end of this fastener practice, where they've worked through their hammers, either with one session or several sessions, and their cordless drill, they now can pick up a reciprocating saw, and they can make cuts in specific places on this board. And the goal here is to make controlled cuts with a reciprocating saw and do it according to this simple instructions, set of plans, and cut out sections of it. There is one other tool that's used during this process, but it might not be with this specific group, and that would be circular saw. So you can have your students cut all of these parts to be assembled. It might be the previous group, depending on where their skills are and what power tools you're working on.
Go ahead.
So what we have here is it's one cut to make the 2x material. The inside part can be cut using the panel cut exercise, and it's spelled out in the panel cut exercise. Students are cutting 4-foot strips off of a panel of OSB, and they're cutting them to 5 1/4 inches. These can be stowed, set aside, and then used in a future or following group to be assembled with the fastener board practice. Generally, this fastener board is early in the program. You're trying to get something for them to swing hammers on and get their practice with their hammers. So as your program rolls along and you have students that are either circular saw practice, now they can cut parts for the group that's up and coming and beginning for their fastener boards. So that's a lot of the a lot of things that are working all together, whether your speed square, your tape measure, your hammers, your cordless drill, your circular saw, all that comes to play on this one item, which to a trainer is not really they're not building anything per se. It's more about focusing on specific skills. So once they can do this, they can do a good job at this, you can carry them to a more advanced or complex build project, and they can work on that. They're also getting print reading skills, right?
I think you're getting print reading skills, but one of the things that the biggest advocate I talk about from the skills exercises is when you're training somebody in construction, I don't care if it's high school training or an adult training program, our whole goal is to get somebody to do one simple thing.
Right.
Is do what I tell you to do. And
do it multiple times. Right. Sometimes that's all you do all day.
If we're hiring an employee, you want to hire someone that's going to do what you ask them.
Right.
Now, of course, you want them to do it well, and you want them to do it safely, and you want them to be engaged. I'm not trying to dismiss any of the other elements, but quite frankly, an employee first does what you tell them to do. So a lot of these skills exercises, and for our teacher partners, become tools to have students learn. We didn't ask you to deviate from these plans. We asked you to follow for those. Like if you could bring up something that has centering lines or even could be the fastener board.
Right.
So let me bring that up on the screen. If you notice on here, and put your mouse over it maybe, we're asking somebody to not only build a grid with a speed square, but we're asking when you put fasteners in to put it in the center of the hole. It's not because we want to make the board pretty. It's so you can have, when you're working with students, and identify who is doing what you ask them to do. That's really the entire setup that we're all trying to do with a student, with a graduate, with an employee. So from skills exercise, I see it as that first. Then I see it as following instructions.
Right.
And nonverbal instructions. So plan reading, even on that fastener board, you have maybe from a speed square level where you're building it, you have dimension lines. You've got to read your tape measure. You've got to understand the graduation marks on a speed square. You got to drag a line. You've got to do all sorts of things, but per a prescriptive outline. And
the one side benefit to each student getting a specific set of instructions they have to follow, it now frees you up as the trainer to now wander the group, to help support somebody that needs it. Meanwhile, everybody else is not stuck. They're carrying forward by using these plans. So not only are the plans good job training, but it's also making your job easier as a trainer to convey to the students what they're supposed to do and get them through. So that to me is one of the biggest benefits for the trainer.
I agree. Sorry, I wasn't paying as much attention. I was trying to put a text on the live stream. So some of these texts I typed up ahead of time, and they're little comments. I don't know if you can see them, but one of the, it works out great. My screen doesn't show it quite right. But to get access to a lot of these tools, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can go on to teachconstruction.org, create an account, which is to see our open resources, and much of this stuff you can get access to. Or as I was alluding to in the on the screen, go to tradeskillsu.com. That's our learning management portal. Create an account. We have 8, I think, open courses right now.
Yes.
So a lot of our fundamentals will always be open courses. We have those videos on YouTube. The rest of the content is open. But the point being, you, assuming you're a teacher, shoot us an email, and we can upgrade your account from a student, which it defaults to when you create an account, to an instructor, and then you see all the instructor resources.
Right.
So some of these, I don't know if you have it for this one, but do you have instructor versions of any one?
Oh, these are all the instructor versions.
Okay.
And my comment about that is the instructor versions will have more information on them generally than what a student receives. And the reason is either it might be a material list that you need to gather per student. It might be tips and tricks to help the students get through it. And the student set is simpler because you don't want to overwhelm the student. They need a specific, simple 1 or 2 pager to get them through, and you're there to kind of fill in the blanks.
So I know you were talking about it when I was futzing around as we first started, and the connection of our skills exercises. But our whole key is, obviously, we're big fans of skills exercises. How else can you individually evaluate a student?
Right.
But what we're also big fans of is making skills exercises connect whenever possible.
Right.
So and I think when you went through it first, I don't know if anybody was online. It looks like we have a couple, but it's just a sandwich header. But the OSB in the middle, where that came from, the panel cut exercise, right?
Yep, the OSB, the center laminated OSB comes from the circular saw exercise. They cut it to 5 1/4, so it will fit in between the 5 1/2 inch 2x6.
Okay.
And to me, a lot of the push to even have the laminated part in the middle, so you can drive a 16D nail through it and it doesn't come out the other side. If it was just two by that was laminated together, that's going to create a point on the backside, which is going to tear up whatever work table you're working on. Also, I like this idea of having multiple materials that you have to drive either a fastener through, a screw, or a nail. And it's ask any student, they love the 2x, but they hate the OSB because it fights you. Yeah, it has a lot more resistance to it. So I believe that it's a little more of a challenge to drive it through this laminated header than it is just raw lumber.
Oh, okay.
So also it offers you that extra 1/2 inch so that you can, and I recommend multiple fasteners. On this particular one, we have, I've got Tico nails here. I've got drywall nails. I've got 8Ds. I've got probably a box nail here. I can't tell anymore. So I've got finish nails of different lengths. So what this also is not only for just driving 16Ds with a framing hammer, it's also for adding different nails, add more nails to their vocabulary, different hammers to drive those nails. Even they can even start setting some of these finish heads on these nails. This should be not only working with a hammer, but also fastener knowledge and practice. And every day, maybe they get a new fastener.
Well, I remember when we were doing training directly with students, not just creating training resources. Well, I say just to diminish all the work that we do every day. But you used to tell students go out to just a bucket of old ass fasteners you had,
yep,
and say, go get 5 ring shanks and pound them into your board. So it was fastener practice, it was identification, it was even teamwork.
Right.
Because it was one bucket and you had 12 students or something like that. But.
And depending along those lines, depending on your setup, I recommend having, when these become just spent from students using them, generally some students want to take them with them, but if they don't, you can laminate all these together to make a large nailing timber that they can practice on. This can turn into their finished board. So if this can either be their finished board or their practice board, depending on how much room you have. Students will bend a lot of nails before they get it right. Sometimes they need a place to practice that first. So, and I believe our theory here is not wasting anything. So there's nothing that is garbage until it is splintered, shattered, bent, or burnt, right? So it's think of anything you have as an opportunity for the students to practice. I can tell you with the hammer and the cordless drill, they can't get enough practice. I always tell my students that it took me my whole life to master the cordless drill. They kind of laugh at it because everybody thinks they know how to use one, but to really, really use one under control and use it dependably, predictably, it takes a long time. So give students several sessions with these tools.
That makes perfect sense. One of the other things, for anybody who watches this most likely on a replay, but on Fridays with teachers, we do a lunch and learn. We had, last 2 weeks ago, we had about 20 folks on. I think we have about 15 or so registered for this coming session. Those sessions we do not through a live stream here. This is really kind of tough because we're streaming out information and we don't know who's watching, if anybody, or most often people will watch these later in a recording. So the lunch and learn is done. We're doing it now through Zoom webinar, but probably shifting it to a regular Zoom meeting. So it could be 10, 20 people, really just peer learning from each other, talking about what works, what hasn't worked. But this coming Friday, we want to talk more about some of the learning management systems. These are great. And we spend an hour or half an hour talking about skills exercises, But right now, for a lot of our states and a lot of our partners, skills exercises aren't even an option.
Right.
So it becomes, what the hell do you do during a COVID-related distance learning environment? Or even after COVID's no longer a problem, hopefully in another X number of months, that you're still doing some sort of remote learning. But how do you prepare a student for coming in? So maybe bring up on your screen, I could feed it out, one of the videos that we've made for students to do it. So, what do we do with the skill exercise?
Okay.
You might want to go to our portal to do it whichever way you want. But one of the reason I'm asking Joe to bring that up is a couple of our partners, even though students aren't in a classroom today, the teacher is saying, hey, let's watch this video on a skill exercise because that's what we will be doing when we're back into the classroom. So it gave us something or giving teachers a tool to at least have students engaged in not just an endless PowerPoint presentation, but something that could show, hey, you're going to be using these tools pretty soon and once you get back into the classroom. I'm going to bring that. You have one up there?
Not yet.
Okay. So if you haven't, you can go to Trade Skills U, you can create accounts, and any one of our classes, or going to PowerSource is probably the best one.
Oh, you know what? I bet is it under?
Just go to PowerSource, not Power Tools, because there is no skills exercise for that.
Okay.
You can log into Trade Skills U, and you can play around with these, take a look at them, see if it's something that you want to use. And a lot of this we continually provide to you for no cost. So Joe is bringing up right now our Power Saws course. He's actually in our open course. Maybe the circular sucks. There's two of them there. I'm going to bring this up on the screen.
You want the student version of the skills exercise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it's going to play, and we'll just let it play. It's not going to turn your volume down, but you can see these online. Yeah, you hit F1. There you go. And then hit full screen, so it'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So these skills exercises are all shot right here in the studio. And it's, in this case, Joe, thankfully with a different shirt on, though, because you still have that one.
I like my shirts.
So going through this entire conversation about this skill exercise. And in this particular one, the instructions are calling out. It's almost, giving a 2-minute version of what you set this up as.
This is basically the students producing with circular saw cuts a simple pattern based on a simple set of plans or a basic set of plans. So part of it is taking measurements off of the plans, producing parts, and then the other part of it, they're creating basically a pinwheel pattern. Part of it is measuring what they've already made to make adjustments to produce custom parts based on the error that they've already produced. So we always like to mix the power tool with some type of problem to solve. This is construction at its most basic, is you're always making adjustments in the field, solving problems.
Sorry to interrupt you. Make sure it's muted.
Oh, yeah, that's not working.
Okay. The reason I'm saying it is if it's not muted, it's pushing the audio out to the channel that we can't tell.
Right, okay, hold on. So let me do this, hold on. Mute it here. Okay, muted. And then we'll go to here and do that. Okay. So very simple, only a few pieces, 5 parts, and they need to be labeling them, following instructions, referencing a simple set of plans. They're measuring, they're using their speed squares, they're making simple cuts with their circular saw. And this is almost an elemental set of plans. We're getting into beginning plans here. Simple dimension callouts, looking at, in this case, it's a perspective, but there's always a plan view too. So they get used to this idea of bird's eye or plan view. And, there's a couple of warnings. Don't trim small blocks with a circular saw, right?
The main goal, though, is for the video is to get a student engaged. And if they're not going to just read a set of plans or understand the instructions, it's to watch a video to say, okay, I'm going to be doing that.
Right.
And I'm cutting that material. So the video already showed them how to use the tool if you don't have in-person education going on. And the video is talking about how they will use that tool. In addition to those, and we're going to wrap on that conversation, but we have, do you know off the top of your head how many skills exercises are built in?
I have no idea. I have no idea, but
About 15, somewhere around 15 range.
if there's a tool involved, there should be a skills exercise to follow up with it. And it would be a shame not to include that because they are so integral and they follow along. Even if you have build projects, even if you're building a tiny house, this is great for students to do, you know, as an assessment, as training, practice exercise, and you get confirmation that the student has actually gleaned what you were delivering, and they can move on or add this to their list of, in their quiver, so to speak, of skills.
Right. So the last thing I want to talk about before we're going to wrap here in another 8 minutes is really what we've been working on it. And I think it's a little bit alludes to what we're doing if you just look right behind us. But I'm talk a little bit about the videos that we've created for our window installation course. Now, before you, go ahead, dig into that.
Well, we have a new course. It's our Windows course, and it goes through everything from what makes a window, the parts, the materials, some of the building science that makes them work or become more or less energy efficient. And it kind of moves into how to install a window. And this is broken down into these simple steps, just like a lot of the other power tools. But now we're talking about building process, right? So windows are one of those really complicated items that requires a lot of thought and layering and sequencing and steps to get through it. I can't, how many steps did we end up with? It's like 20
you counted
steps.
out 12, but when we ended up making the video, it's certainly not set up that way. But as far as the suite of videos in that course.
Right. So the suite of videos is parts and materials of windows, types and styles. It is window installation. That's the whole process of doing it. And then there's window science, which is what makes a window work better, right? All of the theory behind why windows are so high tech.
Right, and building science to it. But we also have a video about the tools. So we broke up the tools to install the video separate from the install.
Right.
And then we have a last video, and we're starting these for every one of our courses, is a field trip, if you will.
Oh,
so
forgot about the field trip
to a manufacturer. So in this case, we went to Mountain View Window and Door, which is a local company. It's got a really cool showroom. In fact, a lot of our pictures in the presentation were taken from there.
Right.
But really a Learn with the Pros type of series and we have a great interview with Devin Tilley on Windows.
Right.
And so we didn't get out to the field to see those windows being put in, but we did get some footage from him of some prior projects they had. So we'll splice that in as well. So the course ends up having what's a window, the tools to installation, window installation,
materials,
building science, and then also our field trip related to it. And that's how all of our courses coming out are going to be. What's interesting, different on this course, several of the videos will be on our YouTube channel, on our Trade Skills U YouTube channel. The rest of the course will be available, but it is not part of our basic subscription service. It's not part of the free service. We are trying to, we have free content, we have not free content. We give a lot away for free, which limits how many people even want to pay for instructional resources past that. But we get it. We totally respect the fact that everyone has tight budgets, and we're looking at getting industry sponsors to pay for courses, similar to how Benjamin Moore did for a painting course, which was a great partnership. But the window and door course as a full course, and all the presentations and question bank and everything else, that's part of our premium service. But you can get an example of that through our open courses and take a look at it, but you won't be able to use it for your students unless you're part of the premium course. Other than the videos. You can grab the videos off YouTube anytime you want.
But the course in as a whole would put anyone in a place where they could thoroughly understand the whole process and install a window properly. I think there's a lot of, and through all the research of how this should be done, there's a lot of ways to do this and a lot of really sketchy ways that it gets done. So,
well, that's actually the toughest part. Windows, we realize it too. I mean, so we look here, and you could, if any of you have installed a window before, Joe and I were debating this a lot, but it's about the sill pan. So in our video, we talked about a 2-piece flashed sill pan.
Right.
What we know, you can buy sill pan units
Right.
to be set in. You can buy, what'd you call them that are on the chairs, little plastic.
Oh, there's formed corners that you.
I always think of them like chairs, and like I'm seeing it as concrete.
Right.
You know how the concrete stand-up
Sure,
chairs
sure.
look like a chair?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of, but our installation, we're trying to keep it basic. All of those parts that Michael mentioned, whether it's formable flex wrap or formed corners, add expense to the installation.
Hmm.
I'm always assuming, after being in the field, is that most people will go for the basic option, and if you can do the basic option, the others become an upgrade and easier. So if you can perform this window installation, you can definitely modify it with flex wrap or add formed corners. That's an easy jump to that. So
it does. So, but the topic being is there's so many different options.
right.
So
Well, and minor variations
Yeah.
and theory behind it, and people are
there's also some scary ones. I mean, we used to work with a company that somehow thought it was right to put the windows onto bare framing. There wasn't, in many cases, there wasn't a sill pan even constructed, whether it was done with flex wrap standard or a sill pan, or a preformed sill pan.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is there's no way in hell that any of these videos is going to make everybody happy and everybody agree with every level of what we're doing. So when you're using them in your classroom or your company, always preface that there are variations, or you may want to use our window installation video, but you may use the flex. It's not called Flex Seal. It's always that cheesy
flex
commercial.
wrap.
A flex wrap. You may use that. Just set the stage with somebody. Look, see what they're doing there. We use this product instead, but the rest of it still makes sense.
And the other major shift would be if the window was put in before the house wrap. It changes everything. The whole sequence. I mean,
thankfully, we don't see that a lot. But
I'm seeing it more.
I'm
seeing it more. You're seeing it in the manufacturer's instructions that they'll now show before the house wrap install and after the house wrap. And so all of the industry is getting hung up in trying to serve all the masters, and it's hard to do.
The other thing I want to preface too is most of our installation processes that we talk about are geared towards production or semi-production construction. So there are different ways. If you're trying to build the best net zero energy home, passive house, you're going to do some things differently, but the process is still the same thing. You're still inserting this window and nailing it on, assuming it has a nailing flange. You're still caulking it. You're still sealing it. You're still doing a lot of the same things.
Right. And that's where you're coming from. Mike and I are sort of in different worlds a lot of times. I'm always thinking of a trainer and students and what can you perform in a limited space with a limited budget and with basic skills that the students have. And we try to marry those two theories together. Sometimes they meet, sometimes they don't.
Right.
Mike always wins, just so you know. Mike,
I just wear him down.
right. He'll argue until you give up. But
unfortunately, I'll often argue after someone gave up.
But the point of that is that we want to come to a simple, basic set of rules that will put someone in a mindset that if they're presented with another window installation, they can modify and adjust to it. Not that we're doing something so exotic they'll never see it again.
Right.
So it's about reasonable, applicable, and not say common, but and universal is impossible with construction. So
yeah, I would say we try to get as common as we can, and we're also not just doing it in a vacuum. So along those lines of what some of our philosophy is on our tools. Anytime we make a new video, and this I'm thinking of table saw. Okay, so we waited for a long time to make training videos for table saw just because of how dangerous it is. But Joe and I will debate as we storyboard these videos ahead of time and talk about what should it include? Are we going to do a split screen with a presentation? Are we going to do a full screen? And you talk about the project. Table saw though, 95% of videos you find out there on YouTube, nobody was using the safety equipment.
Right.
So ours are unique to extent too, where you will always, unless we goofed, you will always see us using the manufacturer safety equipment. We know So this is really more towards a viewer if you're in the industry. We know people take that off. I get it. In most videos you watch, they're
Safety
taking
equipment.
off. I'm talking about the blade guard
Right.
and a portable table
Right.
saw first. You might leave a couple of the other pieces, but the stuff gets in the way.
Yeah.
You will always see it in our videos because most of our consumers using our products are coming from a school system. And I hope to hell if someone was using that table saw or a portable job site table, that a school was not taking that equipment off.
Right.
So
And that becomes, there's no good argument to take it off. So therefore that has to be a personal choice in the field.
Yeah.
And risk assumed, because I would never tell somebody that was a good idea. And I would hope no trainer ever would, even if it was a saw stop that would, shut down in any emergency. It's still not good training. So when it's training,
speaking of those, you ever test one?
No,
I
but
know
I've
they're
seen it.
supposed to work. The table saws with the auto stops, and I've seen it with a hot
Hot
dog.
dog. I
Have you
think
seen anybody try it with their finger?
the inventor did it with his hand, and he nicked his finger barely. And I think that's on video. I think you can see it on video. I think they got it on video.
Would you try it?
No, I don't need to know. I don't need to know.
Just to see. So, all right, you have one of those saws running. You
Mhm.
use the hot dog and you stop the blade.
I do that.
No. You do it 5 times and everything works.
Mhm.
For $50, would you do your own finger?
No, I wouldn't do it. 50? No. No.
Hey, it saved the hot dog.
Why? I'll
Well, that's
watch
a
you
good
do
point.
it. Why would I
No, I
do
know I do it.
Well, I mean, it is electronic. It's very sophisticated. There's a board in there, and you have to replace the cartridge every time. So now you're asking me about ROHS compliance, and there's no more lead in the solder joints, and is it going to fail? And my mind will go to a lot of situations.
How does that saw stop thing work? Is it sensing conductivity?
It's conductive. Your finger completes a
Finishing
circuit.
Okay.
And it's like milliseconds, and it will drag the blade into like a block of plastic that will lock it up like instantly.
Oh, okay.
So if you go online, there's some really
so once
great.
it's done, you have to do a whole reset.
You got to replace the whole mechanism.
It's like an airbag.
Yep.
Oh,
like
I didn't know that. I thought it was you could test it. Okay.
A very violent airbag.
I've never tested
Very
it. I never want to test it. When I was I was probably 20.
Yeah.
One of my jobs worked in a plastics fabrication shop. So really cool job. So we used a vertical milling machine, lathes.
Sure.
But a lot of the stuff, because I was a new guy, and a lot of the stuff we used was just table saw. So we're cutting Plex. In this case, it was Lexan, which is a better product, but very similar to plexiglass. And we had to cut out, let's say there were chunks that were that wide by that tall. They were basically bullets.
Yeah.
So, and it's a production shop. So using a big table saw, and instead of cutting one piece, the shop foreman's like, "No, Smith, you're never going to get anything done. You got to stack them up." So I'll cut them in strips first, maybe 2 feet long, and then turn them, right, and now cut them into without a miter guard push thing, right?
Yeah.
So then you would cut them off.
Using the fence.
The fence was there, which basically makes a repeating rifle at best, a fully automatic machine gun at worst.
4 corners. You never know which one you're going to get. Wow.
Ooh, I can still feel it.
Yeah, I bet.
After getting one of those things to kick back at you, anybody who's watching, I'm sure we've all had it happen. But it's a doozy.
I don't know. I ran across that video of a trainer that I worked with in the past. Was a high school shop teacher who used our resources. He set up a demo of kickback, and even the demo that he said he videotaped it, and he posted it on Facebook, which we're torn about that because as soon as you show something like that to a student, now they want to do it. And
it's the same argument of, can you show them how a nail gun can fire a gun if you hold back the guard?
Right.
Yes, it can, but now you just taught a student how to shoot a nail across the room.
Right, exactly. So it's always this, what's too dangerous? What is safety? Do you show them the wrong way? Is that, all these debates just roll on
That's
and
a
on.
good question. And hopefully some of our teacher partners or whoever stumbles across this, just put it under comments. Here's my question to you. Do you show the wrong way to do something just so you can explain it? Or do you shy away from that because what you're effectively doing is showing how to do something wrong.
Right. And in the moment that you're not thinking, does your brain go to the wrong process or the wrong procedure?
Well, even if it doesn't, I mean, I'm an advocate, and we debate this all the time, of should we show improper construction of
Right,
something?
right.
So if we were showing the window, we even talked about it on this, should
Yeah.
we show flashing done the incorrect way?
Right, right.
I'm an advocate for staying away from it, show it the right way,
yeah.
only show pictures that are done correctly, because what I don't want is someone to see a picture without any context
Right.
and see it done incorrectly, or a teacher or a competitor look at our stuff, show it on a screen, say, see, they're dumbasses.
Right.
So we stay away from it. I'm interested though, do you as teachers, do you show poor construction and talk about that or poor practices and talk about that? It'd be really interesting.
In our session last time, I was sort of having a chat with one trainer was saying that they had students that were afraid of the tools, and you can create fear in students that makes them, then they cannot perform. So it was a bad, incomplete chat, but that's a whole conversation about how badly how do you educate your students? And through fear is not necessarily a good way to do it.
Proper respect, probably not.
Right.
It is, but don't do so much that you don't
Right.
scare
And
them.
that line is very, it's a fine line.
It is. All right. Originally, we were going to try to have these conversations be done in 30 minutes, unless we had a speaker on or a guest or an interview. And we're going to have a couple come on, and I've already agreed. I've got about 3 teachers that said they'd be willing to jump on and talk about really how remote learning has affected their class and what are they doing with it.
Right.
And just have a topic. We'll start those up next week. But if you see these, go to our website. You can send us an email through there, through the Facebook page, any of it, and give us some topics that you think would be valuable to know about. Otherwise, we're going to push these out every week talking about our products. And I'm not trying to make a commercial, but we're also trying to get it out there of what we provide.
And
So
we find there's a lot of confusion or incomplete understanding of all the things we offer. That goes back to the skills exercises. Check those out, review them, and make sure that you understand the connection of those simple exercises, how it benefits you as a trainer, ease of training, how it benefits the student for assessment and practice, and all of the skills that are wrapped around in all of that process. Don't skip over. This is one of the most important facets or assets that we have, is the skills exercises that reference all the materials.
I agree. Certainly the most applicable to a work environment,
Right.
a skill environment.
Right.
The other thing we'll spend time talking about, not today, but is learning management systems. And there's so many products out there. We use a product called Moodle. It's an open source platform. You've got D2L, Blackboard, Schoology, and a big push now from a lot of schools I see is blanking out, Google Classroom.
All right.
I tell you, I wanted to hate Google Classroom, and I figured it was just a rebundling of Google Sheets and a few of those things, which we're G Suite users. We love Google for that perspective, but I didn't have very high aspirations for Google Classroom. I created a course. And so, you know what, I think it was last weekend, and just said, let me dig in. I spent maybe 2 hours and created a course for measure and marking, created quizzes. Unfortunately, I couldn't take our content and just suck it in like we do with Schoology. Canvas could take our whole course and suck it in and work perfectly. Google Classroom doesn't do any of that. But I want to do a whole series and talking about Google Classroom because it's free. It's good enough. And you're going to see a huge amount of people use it because it's free and it's good enough.
I think it's kind of session based. I mean, it seems to me like a teacher can use that and plan their day with it, and students can engage that way.
I don't know. I don't know if I would use that as a description. I saw it more like Schoology, very kind of linear.
It's not broad though in the calendar and the
you can tie things to
assignments.
calendar.
Oh, okay.
You can. It has assignments. You can set dates. It has almost every functionality I saw that Schoology had.
Okay.
Schoology, I think, is a little bit more advanced than Google Classroom, and I'm not a Schoology fan.
Right.
I think Canvas, D2L I use as a student, actually, and I've done some in their admin side, but Canvas, I think, is strong. I'm a fan of Moodle because we use it and it's free. But I think I would bet in a year's time, Google Classroom probably has 50% of the users that we talk to.
Which might push for advancements in
It could.
Google Classroom.
I don't know. It's maybe. I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would certainly hope so. But the point being, love to have some conversations with Google Classroom users as teachers. What struggles are you having? We're going to go through those of how we created a course with our tools, and we'll share that. But interested to see other folks using that product and how you made some of your courses, or if it's in Schoology, another big user product base. Love to have people come on and show your course, even if it's for 10 minutes, and just say, here's how we do it. Here's what we are accomplishing with it. So we just think it'd be kind of interesting. Well, I see that there's some folks watching, but nobody wanted to put anything in on a chat. So I don't have any topics that we would have time to really dig into. Do you have anything you want to chat about, Joe?
I kind of spent myself on all those skills exercises. No, I can't say enough about simple training, right? Simplifying training. And I think we always laugh about, and maybe Mike doesn't want me to bring this up, but trainers always want to build. They want to build, right? They want to build a house with students. They want to build a shed. They want to build a tiny house. And the first thing I always mention is, if you want to do that, if you're crazy enough to take that on with your class, if you're good enough at planning and good enough at coordinating your students, keeping them safe, start with the skills exercises first, the simple things, because once the students start building, they have no interest in doing some of these basic, fastener boards or simple cuts. They grow out of them very quickly. So you have a sort of a window of time if you're introducing a tool, or they're in the beginning of the program. You have a sort of a honeymoon period where they are interested in just that skill. And once you lose that, you never get it back. So and it will set them up so that you have a crew of people that can actually build something.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
I agree with you. I mean, we harp on skills first, build second, and it drives me bananas. So if I ever talk to you directly or personally and you say we're building a tiny house, this is where my audible groan will probably come from, because we've had this conversation dozens of times. Yeah, but we're building a tiny house. Great. I think build projects are wonderful when the student knows how to do something. Don't teach them online and then jump to a tiny house. Or I hope you're not doing it. If you are, hey, you're probably doing great. But I mean, it comes down to, you want to teach a student how to install a window, and you say you have 30 students and you're all doing it on the tiny house. How many windows are there?
Yeah.
There's what, 3 max?
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. One door.
So don't tell me they learned how to put a window in.
Right.
So last item I have, and I'm going to see if I can just share this as we kind of close out, but I'm going to share my screen. Sharing screen, go to a tab, and trying to do, is that it? This is it. There. So we're off the screen. We're just here by audio right now. And I was sharing the screen of our how to install a window. Here's the topic I want for another conversation, and my dog's coming up to say hello, is how long is too long for a video? This video online now is 45 minutes long. Is that too long? I'm not going to say our position. Joe and I probably differ. We've been getting information from several. And dog, I don't need you right now. But how long is too long for a particular video? Are you in that 3-minute video club? Are you in that 15-minute video club, or what? But that's the question I think we're going to have for next topic is what's proper.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this video, even on recording, put something in the comments. We'll pick up those comments on next week at 1:00 Mountain Time. And I think we'll focus about videos. And like I said, what's the proper length and what is just a mistake, if that makes sense. And I wasn't sharing it. So now you can see it as a split screen. Let me do it this way. So new to this live streaming piece as well. Not to say that in close, we'll apologize now. We use this studio setup for filming videos, a lot different than doing a live stream and trying to speak about it, think about what to say, and run the interface. So another sessions I'd love to do at some point, if COVID lasts even longer and you have to teach from your school, but all the students are home, I'd love to talk to you about how we do it, how we do use technology. Right now, this is in my home basement. Joe and I don't have masks on because we've been together every day since COVID hit. And this is at home.
What is this?
We have everything set up here.
An 8 by 10 maybe, or
10 by something, but I think we're 10 or 11 feet this way.
Right.
It doesn't take a huge amount of space. You can see we change cameras. I've got a camera set right on me, and then we have a camera set that's on Joe's computer. And we could also do split screen where you're seeing this video happen. So there's a lot of tools that are available to you, and a lot of this stuff's available for free. I'm not saying you're going to have 4 camera setups or 3 plus your computer in a day, but with a webcam disconnected from your computer, not just the little one on your laptop, you can do a huge amount of production for students using Zoom or using the tools that schools are giving you. So love to have a series chatting about that kind of stuff too. So, all right, I'm going to say with that, we're done, and we'll sign off, and hope somebody watches this, because we're going to give it our college try once a week for an hour, Wednesdays from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Mountain Time. We're going to end up a little bit shorter today. These are available for recording. Obviously, it's probably where you're listening to it now or watching it now. But send us topics, tell us what you want us to talk about, as long as it relates to construction education.
sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
And thanks for tolerating us if you even made it this long.
Yeah.
So, take care, everybody.